Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Ali and let's talk about finance. I'm a certified financial planner based out of Toronto, and I'm going to explain why it's so hard to get to $100,000, but it becomes so much easier to grow your money once you've surpassed $100,000. So let's get started. The very first thing that I wanted to do is I wanted to show you a very simple illustration as to why it's so hard to grow your money when you don't have a whole lot versus once you actually get to $100,000, how that will grow your money significantly quicker. And I'm going to use a very simple example. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what 8% rate of return will look like for the amounts from $1, $10, $100, and so on and so forth up until $1 million. And this is really going to put it into perspective for you as to why it's so hard to grow your money for that first $100,000, but then after that it becomes so much easier. So if we take a look at you investing $1 and you get an 8% rate of return, that means in 1 year you made 8 cents. So you're at $1.08. Now $10, when you go to invest that, an 8% rate of return gets you 80 cents. It's $10.80 by the end of the year if you had an 8% rate of return. $100, an 8% rate of return gets you $8, so you're at a total of $108 after that. So again, not a whole lot of money that you make off of investing those small amounts. $1,000 gets you $80 with an 8% rate of return. So that means by the end of the year, you'll have $1,080 if you had an 8% rate of return. Now let's take a look at $10,000. Now this is where things start to jump up a little bit, and it starts to make sense as to why there's a big difference. Once you're at $10,000, then you have an $800 return with that 8% rate of return. Now, that's still not a whole lot of money, but it's about $66 a month, which is not small amount of money, but it's not life-changing money. Once you're at $100,000, then you get an $8,000 return from that 8% rate of return. So $8,000 means $666 a month. Now this, for some people, could be life-changing money. It provides them a little bit more flexibility and it allows them to really take advantage of the return that they have. Remember how I was saying once you get from $100,000, everything becomes a lot easier? Well, this is why. Once you're at $1 million, and the reason I'm choosing $1 million is because we're just adding one extra zero. So $1 million with an 8% rate of return is $80,000 a year. So $80,000 a year, for a lot of people, that's their annual salary. That's $6,666 every month. Now this is significant money because once you realize that once you're at $1 million, you're making almost the equivalent of that $100,000 every single year. This is part of the reason for why growing your money once you're past $100,000 really makes a big difference. This is the power of compound interest. If you understand this, then you work as hard as you can to get yourself to that first $100,000. And then after that, you continue to save, but you're gonna allow the compounding interest on your investments to do the heavy lifting for you. Let's say at the end of the year, every single year, you're investing $10,000. $10,000, 8% rate of return, that's gonna give you about $800 a year. So that's not going to do a whole lot for you in the first few years. It'll actually take you about 8 years to get to $100,000 if you invest $10,000 a year at an 8% rate of return. And in those 8 years, you have to contribute about $80,000. With the rate of return of 8%, you end up making about $26,000 on that money. So as you can see, you put in the majority of the money, you put in about 80%, a little bit, 75–80% of the amount of that $100,000, and the investments covered the remaining amount. As you can see, it's taken a long time, 8 years. Now, let's take a look and see what happens once you can continue contributing $10,000 a year after you get to that $100,000 mark. As I mentioned before, as your money grows, you gain more from that 8% rate of return. So what you'll find is once you get to that $100,000, to get the next $100,000, it only takes about 5 years. Now, in those 5 years, you'll contribute an additional $50,000, so the total that you'll contribute is about $130,000. Now, if we take a look at that $130,000 that's invested versus the $200,000 that you'll have, about 65% of what you contributed equates to that $200,000. So that means that the remaining 35% actually came from the growth of your investments. It took 8 years to get to that first $100,000, and it took 5 years to get to that next $100,000. Let's see how long it takes to get to that third $100,000. Now, this is really where things start to pick up. It'll only take about 3 years to get to that third $100,000. So in this case, what you'll see is things are picking up relatively quickly. It's taking less than half the amount of time to get an extra $100,000 when you're at this point compared to that first $100,000. If we take a look at how much you actually had to contribute, now you're at about $160,000 that you contributed versus having $300,000. So that means the amount that you contributed relative to what you have is now sitting at about 57 to 58%. So this means that your investments actually made up for the other 42 to 43%. We're gonna take a look at the next 100,000. I'm gonna quickly pick this up. Now, to get from 300 to 400,000, it'll take you a little under 3 years. So a little under 3 years, and again, with those contributions, now you're looking at about 190,000 that was being contributed and out of the 400,000. So that means now you've contributed less than half of the amount that's in the account because of the continued growth of the investments that you have in there. Now, to get from 400,000 to 500,000, it actually takes about 2 years. So now all of a sudden, it takes 2 years to gain an extra $100,000 versus 8 years, 4 times longer to get to that first $100,000. And this continues to cycle. It'll take about 2 years to get from 500 to 600,000. It'll take less than 2 years to get from 600 to 700,000. Same thing, less than 2 years to get from 700 to 800,000, and so on and so forth until you get to $1 million, where it'll take you less than a year and a half to get from 900,000 to $1 million. And then $1 million plus, it's going to take you about a year, maybe about 15 months or so to get another 100,000. And this is really, really why it's important to get to $100,000 as quickly as possible. Because as you can see, the amount of time it takes for you to grow your money, a significant amount, it becomes less and less and less. And that's why it's so easy for people that have money to continue to grow their money. Whereas people that don't have as much money, it takes them a lot longer to grow their money. Now keep in mind, the rate of return that we're looking at is the same, whether you have $1 or whether you have $1 million. Whether you have $100,000 or whether you have $500,000, it's still an 8% rate of return. It's just a matter of understanding that 8% rate of return means something significantly different when you have a lesser amount in your investments versus when you have a greater amount in your investments. And this is why you have to push yourself. In this example, I gave the example of having $10,000 to invest every single year. If you're able to invest more, do it. Because if you could contribute, say, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 towards your investments, now you're gonna get to that $100,000 mark a lot sooner. And the sooner you get to that $100,000 mark, the easier it gets for you to continue to grow your investments. So there you have it, guys. Those are the reasons for why it's so hard to get to that first $100,000, yet it's so easy to continue to grow your investments soon after that. If you guys like this video, please leave a like down below. And also, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Also, if you learned anything from this video, please share it with your friends and family. At the end of the day, if you learned something from this, I'm sure they will too. It also helps me grow this channel to allow me to continue to make these videos, to make this information readily available to people like yourself. As always, guys, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you guys in the next one.